Hello, I'm Dr. Terrell. I will be teaching the Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator this semester. So in this video, I will start with the very basics and I will talk a little bit about Adobe Photoshop and a little bit about Illustrator and the differences between them. I'm going to share my screen so we can go to Photoshop first. Now, as you can see here, when you open Photoshop, you have to click on New File, and you can either create a custom page. You can go into a default Photoshop size, or you can go to Print and find a letter size. Letters are generally 8.5 to 11 inches. So when you click on this, you will see on the right-hand side the measurements for the paper. So 8.5 inches wide and 11 inches high. You can select the orientation to be horizontal or vertical, and this is the resolution. So in this class, I'm going to talk about the very basics, the foundations, and I want to talk about how I want you to submit your assignments. So when you look at that resolution here, this is shown in pixels. Pixels are the tiny little squares that make up a picture, and Photoshop is generally pixel based. So what that means is, for example, if you look at the size of this paper, it's shown in inches, but you can select pixels. So the width of each paper is 2,550 pixels, and the height is 3,300 pixels. So I usually use inches here so that I can see how big my paper is. If I'm planning to print that Photoshop picture, then it would be easier for me to print if it is letter size. So this is regular printer paper size. Now, the resolution is how clear your picture is, basically, just to be very simple. And you can make this smaller. So with your assignments, I will ask that you keep that at 72 pixels per inch, because that will make your file smaller, and it will also allow you to attach it easily or to save it easily. So we're going to keep using 72 pixels per inch. So whenever you open a new file, always go to the properties and select 72 pixels per inch. Now, what that means is that for every inch of this letter, you have 72 pixels. So when you zoom into that picture, it will not be as clear as, for example, at 300 pixels per inch. So I'm going to illustrate that on Photoshop for you, but I'm going to go ahead and do 72 pixels, and I'm going to create this first page. So this is our first page. Now, I mentioned that Photoshop is pixel based. So when you look at Photoshop screen, and let's talk about the basics here. We have the tools on the left hand side. So we have a lot of different tools. When you hold over or hover over that tool, then you will see an explanation of that. So this is the magic wand. This is the crop tool. This is the eyedropper tool. This is the brush tool, and so on. So let's select a brush, and you can select any color from here. So I'm going to pick red, and as you can see in this picture, the red is shown on that top square, and that top square is the foreground color. The white in the back shows generally the background color. So when you're trying to create a line here with Photoshop, you can change the color, you can use the brush, and when you click on brush here, you also see all the controls for the brush. For example, if you want to make the brush a little bit thicker. You can make a bigger size brush and you can brush like this. Now I want you to see here the clarity of the picture on this one versus this one. I mentioned that Photoshop is pixel based. So when you zoom into this picture, and there's a zoom here, and you have the controls as soon as you click on this, so you can go to zoom in. You can also use Command plus if you're using a Mac, and if you're using a PC, Control plus will actually zoom in for you, or you can just click on this and click on the picture. Now I'm going to use Control plus just to show you. So you can see that as we zoom into this picture, the clarity of our lines actually get a little bit worse. So when we keep zooming in, you see those little squares. These are the pixels. And we selected 72 pixels per inch. So 1 inch real size of this means there are 72 pixels in that 1 inch distance. So if your resolution was 300 pixels per inch, then it would take a lot more zooming in to get to that unclear picture. So what that means is that when you have a higher resolution, then your picture is going to be a lot clearer as you zoom in. And then you have to zoom in a lot more to get that pixelization. And what we call pixelization is this situation here. So it's making those pixels more apparent. So remember that with Photoshop, because it's pixel based, when you get closer to the picture, it just becomes a little blurry. And we used a bigger brush on this, so we can zoom into this one, and you will see that, the pixels, as you go in, this is how it looks like. So for example, if you create a poster with Photoshop and you want to make this a big billboard, so you have to actually expand it and make it a really big picture, you will lose quality. You will lose the clarity of the picture because Photoshop is pixel based. Now, Illustrator, on the other hand, is not like this. Illustrator is what we call vector based. So you are basically drawing in Illustrator. So when you draw lines, the lines actually stay as lines. So when you create something with Illustrator and you blow it up to be a big billboard, you are not going to lose any quality. It will look just as clear as it was as a smaller picture. And I want you to know that difference. And this is going to be my first class for you.